It's not stealing, it's more like wealth redistribution. Yeah, let's go with that. Hello, my name is Nathan, and welcome to This and That Gaming. Today, I'll be taking you through the basics of looting, and a bunch of tips and tricks for making the most of your time searching for things of use in the zombie pack world of State of Decay 2. How to loot is actually really straightforward. When you enter a building or other location, the game will indicate how many lootable, is that a word? Containers there are inside. This is shown in the top left corner right underneath the name of the building. On screen, the containers that can be looted flash white when they are within view. Simply walk up to these flashing containers and hold down the activate key or button, and your character will start searching. You can rush this by pushing and holding the sprint button while holding down the activate button. Although doing so has a chance of making a very loud noise, attracting all zombies that hear it. The map can help you get an idea of what can be found inside each building you have discovered. Just hover over the building's icon in the map screen, and you'll see in the top left what resources are likely to be there. Other than the 5 basic resources, food, ammo, medicine, building supplies, and fuel, you will occasionally see what looks like a tool inside a gear. This indicates a building that has a chance to contain more or less random stuff. If you like to gamble, this is the icon you are looking for. The best and most obvious loot you'll want to keep an eye out for is rucksacks of basic resources. Food, ammo, medicine, fuel, and building supplies. These 5 things are what keep your survivors healthy and armed and should never be turned away from or left behind. If you find yourself in a position where you simply don't have space to take them back to base, you should make a mental note to come back and pick it up later. Helpfully, the game will indicate on the map when a building still has resources inside for you to collect. The map icon will change if you have searched a building but have not yet collected the resources inside. Instead of question marks or gear icons, the map will show the resources you have discovered but not yet taken. Some other good loot to look out for is weapons, healing items, crafting supplies like scraps and jugs of chemicals, ammo, facility mods, and luxury items. Oh, and skill books. Don't forget to take skill books. Let's talk about loot that can be ignored for the most part. These are less useful or downright pointless things that only fill up inventory spaces that could otherwise be filled with stuff you actually want. The worst loot by far is the notes and scraps of paper that you find in containers around the world. These are in-game to add a bit of flavor text and in some cases to help you progress through a mission. In the latter's case, you should pick up the letter to advance the mission and then immediately drop it. Other examples of bad loot include basic low-tier small weapons like kitchen knives and screwdrivers, and small backpacks. The third category of looting is clothing. These items show up in containers with either a shirt or a hat icon and don't take up any backpack space. Instead, when you pick these up, they automatically go to your closet and are there across all of your playthroughs. You should always pick these up, especially if you like to change your survivor's style. Okay, let's move on to how to loot efficiently. This is pretty straightforward because it really comes down to what you are looking for. Once you know that, all you gotta do is apply common sense. For instance, if you are looking for the fuel resource or for gas cans to fill up your car, you would need to search places where that would be found. Gas stations or inside garages, that sort of thing. All you gotta do to loot efficiently is decide what you are after and then think about where you would find such a thing in real life. Of course, the map can help by telling you in the top left what kind of resources are likely to be inside any of the buildings you've already marked. Here's an example of where you'll likely find all 5 resources. Food will be found in restaurants, fuel will be found at gas stations, building supplies will be found at construction sites, ammo will be found inside sporting goods stores, and medicine will be found in pharmacies. These are just some examples, and there are a lot of other types of buildings where these resources can also be found. You just gotta look. Looting is made way easier when you start to use vehicles, and there are a couple of ways to maximize your efficiency when using one. Before we get to that though, you'll want to make sure your car is in a fit condition to be out in the field. After all, getting stuck out there with a trunk full of loot won't do you much good if the car stops moving. Firstly, you want to make sure the trunk is empty except for a spare gas can. The next bit is to make sure the car is gassed up and in a repaired state. Not a state of decay. Oh god. It doesn't have to be a full tank of gas or fully repaired, but you want the gas tank above 2/3 full and the engine to not be smoking. In order to store items in a vehicle, you'll want to approach the trunk, which will always be at the very back of the vehicle. Each type of vehicle has only a certain number of trunk spaces. Cars have the least with 4, and vans have the most with up to 9 spaces. Utilizing trunk space is on the surface pretty straightforward. The amount of space an item will take up in the trunk is the same as that item would take up in your backpack, with the exception of rucksacks. Rucksacks have their own space in your backpack, meaning you can only carry one at a time. Whereas, if you put them in the trunk, they can go into any regular inventory slot. This means that if the trunk has 6 spaces for items, you can fit 6 rucksacks if you really wanted to. In general, put items in the trunk that don't stack. The reason you want to do this is because while you are searching a house, you'll likely come across stackable items you already have in your inventory. If you left the original stack in the trunk, picking up these new items will create a new stack taking up a new backpack slot. I really hope that makes sense. I'm not convinced it does, but I hope it does. To unload from your vehicle, just park it inside the yellow parking zones in front of your home and access the trunk. At the bottom of the screen, you should see a button prompt to unload an item to base. If you use this feature, you won't have to run back and forth from the vehicle to the locker just to empty your car. Unloading directly from the parking zone will save you a ton of time, and more importantly, it will save you from losing your mind. The best way to loot a whole area of the map very quickly is to establish an outpost in that area and loot all surrounding buildings using that outpost as a central location. This allows you to empty your backpack without having to go back to your main base. The way this works is that all outposts share a locker, meaning that if you put an item in the locker at your outpost, you can access that item from any other outpost or your home base. The only downside to this strategy is that you can't deposit rucksacks into outpost lockers, but that's okay. Just bring a large car with you for those, and once that's full of rucksacks, make a quick trip back to base to drop those off. To close out the video, I thought I would throw in some additional tips, starting with how to manage rucksack space in your home base. You see, you can only store so many resources in the storage facility of your home before you have too much. When you overfill your base, resources start disappearing. To avoid losing rucksacks while you wait for space to clear up, what you want to do is use the trunks of vehicles that you aren't currently using out in the field to store extra rucksacks. Just park vehicles you find outside your base and empty out the trunks. When you have surplus rucksacks, place them in said empty trunks until you need them. They won't get stolen or otherwise disappear, so you can leave them in there basically indefinitely. Free extra space. My next tip is that when you're really trying to loot areas super fast and are trying to make fewer trips back to base, what you'll want to do is have a fellow survivor accompany you. Simply walk up to your teammates and ask them to follow you. Make sure both backpacks are empty and that no one is carrying a rucksack. When one character's inventory is full and they have a rucksack, simply switch to the other character and start filling up their inventory too. Just a word of warning. Don't take them near plague hearts or juggernauts because there's a good chance they will charge in swinging a stick or a plastic fork and get seriously injured. That concludes my video guide on looting techniques and tips in State of Decay 2. Hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned some stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and if you learned something and want to learn more, please consider liking and subscribing for more guides to come. My name is Nathan, the channel is This and That Gaming. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.